Kia ora te whānau. Today we're going to be going through the best tips for squatting, as well as having a look at some gear as well that could help assist you. Oh wow, surprise, surprise, another plane. Here we go. All right, so first things first, let's grab that gear that I was talking about. That's the gear that we're going to utilize today. We'll have a look at how to set that gear up, how to make sure that we're going to get full benefit from using that gear, and obviously why you would use that stuff in the first place. A disclaimer, I don't always use all of that gear. Sometimes I don't use any of it. I will just use obviously the barbell, etc. to get my load on my back or on my front, or wherever it is I'm going to be loading that type of squat, and then obviously go from there. First of all, let's just run over what are the pieces of gear that I've put down and why I would use these things to try and improve my ability to lift weights. So first off, we've got the old weight belt. Basically, your weight belt is to try and help you increase that pressure around your tummy, around your core, and just obviously help that trunk area out. So the way that you would use it is you'd put it around your waist, get it really, really tight, and the height of the belt along the bottom of the torso really depends on your individual preference. Some people like it quite high and some people like it quite low. And honestly, this is just a bit of a play around with what you've done in the past and really what works for you. There are a ton of tutorials on how to use these types of belts, but in terms of the actual use that it has and why you would use one, that's pretty much the reason why, is to try and increase what's called IAP, intra-abdominal pressure. And basically it just adds a ton more tension to your core section, to your trunk section, so that when you're going through that squat pattern, you've got some more to brace against. Some of the cues we like to utilize when using this belt is try to snap the belt with your tummy, okay, so increasing that pressure. When you utilize that deep breath to increase that tension, we're trying to breathe down into our tummy so we can really feel that nice tight tension through our whole trunk. Some other equipment that I have here today are these knee sleeves. All right, we've got these awesome knee sleeves right here. So these knee sleeves are from, again, Faster. These are all good. Okay, their knee sleeves are fine. The only problem for these ones with me is they're a little bit too big for me. Okay, I couldn't fit them properly, but they do provide a little bit of compression around the knee joint. And obviously with a knee sleeve, we're not really looking for too much in terms of assistance. We're more looking for warmth through the knee. Okay, so what tends to happen is sometimes when you're having those long rest periods in between doing heavy lifts, we can get a bit cold. All right, and the joints, these areas, you can actually use an infrared camera to see how much loss there is. And sometimes there is a little bit of loss of heat through this area, and we don't really want that. We want them to stay nice and warm. We want them to feel warm as well. And that's why you get this kind of wetsuit material and keep it over your knee joint. Especially for us older people. You'll probably see this a lot in the CrossFit games, just in the CrossFit scene as well, because they do so many reps on reps, and they're doing a lot of squatting, etc., and then other movements in between, where the knee maybe doesn't get as much work going through it. They wear these knee sleeves for those workouts, so that keeps the knees nice and warm. If you do get tight ones as well, it does add a little bit more compression, and you can kind of roll them down, as you can see here. So you can kind of just roll them down over to the calf if they're just a bit tight on the knee each time. And then that allows you to, let them off every now and then if they are feeling a little bit tight. And obviously that added compression is going to help with stability around the knee joint as well. more just that feedback, okay, so that proprioception around what you're feeling each time and what's happening is what you'll really get. You won't get heaps of help because there will be a bit of give in the knee sleeve because they're like, I think they're part elastic, probably part polyester, something like that. I'll have a look at the actual materials used. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, so these ones are really great for keeping those knees warm, and you want to do everything that you can to make sure you're feeling good through your whole workout. These are a winner right there, and that's why I would use them. The next thing that I have that is definitely a luxury, but I mean, if you're old and a little bit like me, you're getting into the long game of training now, having an investment into some lifters is always a great thing, and you know, you can't really go wrong. There's not really much cons in terms of having lifters, apart from, I guess, the wallet a little bit, but these days there's so many options on the types of lifters you can get. Okay, so I got these ones when I was in Australia. The shoe itself is just there to create a bit of elevation through the heel. So as you can see in this video, when I get that elevation, it allows me more mobility through the rest of my joints because I don't need required mobility through my ankle joint. Okay, most people have poor mobility through the ankle joint, which limits them from being able to do high range of motion movements. All right, so you can't do those full squats because of that ankle mobility, and the compromise is either at the heel coming off the ground or through the lower back. Okay, I have terrible range of motion if I'm trying to keep my back nice and straight. If I let my back round, all good, I can hit those full squats, but we don't really want that with a loaded barbell on our back as well. So that's why I like to use these. They give me that little bit more range of motion so I can get some more range of motion through my joints and build some more strength over the entire range. These ones were very expensive, well, expensive for me anyway, but I've had these probably about 5 years now, and the condition of them is still really good. I bought them for $280 Australian, which, yeah, that's quite high, but I mean, if I knew I was gonna get like plus 10 years out of them, it's fine. These are great. They've kept really good. So I use these for my squatting. I use these for my ollie lifts as well. Really love them for that. It's just that little bit of added pressure on the ground too. So this hard base, I think this might be like maybe rubber and plastic. So it's quite a hard plastic and rubber meshed together, and it just provides you with a really stable platform. Once you use these though, it's so hard to go back to normal shoes, and they do feel really awkward. I'd probably say that a Metcon, that type of shoe, would probably be the one that you'd want to have in your back pocket as well, because I think from memory they've got quite a hard sole as well, and the hard sole really feels good to squat against versus like a really soft shoe. Alright, so we got all of our gear, we're ready to start our squatting. Honestly, you don't really need the belt right now. You don't actually need the sleeves as well, especially when you go through your warm-up part. So we can take this part off, and I'll just leave the sleeves down. But what we want to do is go over our technical cues for how to just set up with regards to the barbell, our body position, and then just before we lift as well. So we want to make sure that this barbell is set at a ideal height for us as an individual. That's going to be different for everyone, and that is one of the reasons that using a rig like this is really, really helpful. Ideally, if you have to choose from having the bar slightly too high or slightly too low, go with the too low option, right? Because at least you can get under the bar, and when you stand up, you'll have enough room to clear out the rig each time. If you have it too high and you've got a tippy toe each time, as the weight starts to increase, it's going to be really difficult to try and manage that. And if you've got a bar that does have a bit of give, which means that the bar starts to bend as the weight starts to increase, then it's always going to kind of hit those racks on the way out. So always choose the too low option. Once we know that our bar is set in an ideal height for us, then what we want to do next is make sure that we're even on the bar. This is where I see so many people go wrong, is they don't set themselves up with their hands first. Especially those people who are not really aware of where the center point of the bar is. We don't want to be offset a little bit. If we start to offset, we're going to get a lopsided weight, and then that bar's going to lean a little bit. I always like to set my hands as narrow as I can go based on my mobility through my elbow and through my shoulder. Alright, so for me at the moment, that's about one of these rings. just around the ring finger or one of these rings. Then that'll set you even. Then I'm gonna bring myself under the bar. Then our next cue is to draw down through the lats to create some more tension on the bar. Whilst keeping the upper body engaged, we also want to take a deep breath to try and increase the tension in our core. This is known as our intra-abdominal pressure. Whilst doing this, we also want to drive the knees out, push the hips back, and sit down through our heels. So as you can see, when we perform that squat pattern, we don't lose our breath as we go through the squat, because that is what's keeping our tension through our whole upper body. So utilizing all of those cues together while we go through the squat is a lot of cues to focus on all at once. And that's why we just do it with an empty barbell first, or even just a PVC pipe. Ideally, we do want to have something loaded on our back position so that when we're down in that back position squat, we're using all the same kind of cues. If there's nothing loaded there, then there's a couple of cues we probably wouldn't utilize, like setting it on our traps and keeping our lats engaged. If you are struggling to remember all the cues, maybe just write down the cues in front of you and just practice them one by one with a really light load as you go through. Fortunately for me, I got to learn a lot of those tips and tricks about bracing and utilizing those types of cues when I was a bit younger. So I was able to kind of practice them for a long time all throughout my journey. So that's over 10 years of practicing those different cues to try and help me with my lifts anytime that I do a lift, not just during the back squat. Anyways, basic recap is utilize the gear that works best for you and make sure that you don't always train with the gear on, okay? So it's good to train without it sometimes so you can get good at activating and engaging the right muscle groups and utilizing your breathing, etc. Also, setup is a major priority in terms of whenever you're going to lift, making sure that you set yourself up right with the bar, and then making sure that you utilize the right setup cues before you perform a movement sequence. Thanks a lot guys for watching the video. Please like and subscribe, and if you can, share this around as well, just so that we can put some more knowledge into this industry from another perspective. If you made it this far into the video, you might as well drop a young sword down there in the comments below. Thank you so much for your support. Check us out over on Instagram as well. We are at The Collective Training. You can come on there and DM us any questions you have about anything fitness related about the industry. Peace.